We need to get rid of these corporations and these law enforcement agencies if we want to stop the socialist agenda.
Exactly. I don't know if socialist is the exact word that I would use. I would call it communist.
Most Republicans love communism. They just don't know what it means.
There really is going to be some redistribution of wealth because they stole our wealth. So there is going to be some.
There should be a redistribution of wealth.
There is going to be, yeah.
So in order to get rid of communism, we need to get rid of the big banks.
Yeah.
Get rid of big pharma.
Right.
What else? Big tech landlords that are coming in and buying hundreds of properties. You don't even know what corporations.
Like China is doing it, and Bill Gates.
Zillow.
Yeah.
We need to get rid of pharma, big pharma, Pfizer, Moderna.
That's right. You know what?
Amazon, Pfizer, Moderna, Apple. We need to get rid of the big pharma companies, the corporations, the big banks, in order to stop the communist agenda.
You know what? Yeah, these big businesses, Amazon, this is the playbook for communism coming into our country.
We got to get rid of the banks if we want to stop the socialist agenda.
Why do we need money anyways? I mean, honestly, I don't see why we need money. We can trade goods. I have a craft. I have a lot of craft.
We're gonna shut down the country ourselves.
So the workers of this country need to get together, go on a general strike. Workers of the world unite. Okay, strike, and stop the communist agenda.
So Walter Masterson has done it again with this TikTok, pointing out the fact that if you highlight simple tenets of socialist thinking, that a lot of right-wingers will jump completely on board with it. That people like the idea of worker ownership. People like the idea of wealthy capitalists not being in charge of our system. People like the idea of millionaires and billionaires not being able to dictate to politicians how the country should run. And dare I say, people are more than willing to accept democratization, not only in the workplace, but also with the economy at large. But there's a big snag with this. And that is, if you really pry, these right-wingers will go in a really weird direction. That is to say, these right-wingers, instead of explaining their problems with capitalism as the result of capitalism, they will explain it through these ridiculous conspiracy theories, especially anti-Semitic conspiracy theories. And it is very, very frustrating to see so many people fall into this pipeline, because the reality is, people are soaked in so much anti-communist propaganda that most Americans, politically speaking, are functionally illiterate. That is to say, they don't have a basic understanding of what left or right even means, and they don't have a basic understanding even of what socialism is, much less the history of any type of socialist country. In fact, let's take China for example. Most Americans don't know the simple, basic fact that when it comes to spending money after paying for basic necessities, the average worker in China is actually better off than the average worker in the United States. While they may have lower nominal wages, the truth of the matter is that the cost of living is so much lower in China that the average person has a far easier time living their life in China than in the United States. And that's one of the reasons why China has a 90% home ownership rate, while the United States has something like a 60% home ownership rate. And these are just basic facts that most Americans don't know. And a lot of that is because our media is by and large owned by wealthy capitalists who are invested in every segment of the economy, and thus as a result they share interests with all these different segments of the economy. And so the media in the United States will almost universally push anti-communist propaganda about other countries around the world and completely disregard any type of critique of capitalism itself. And in doing so, they leave a lot of Americans completely ignorant about the world. And when so many people are ignorant about the world, the only people that give people any narrative to explain why it seems like regular working class folk don't have a real democracy in the United States are these right-wing conspiracy theorists, these like Alex Jones types, who will spread this anti-Semitic conspiracy theory. They'll talk about things like lizard people and all of this nonsense, or they'll blame black and brown folks, or they'll blame queer folks for all of the problems in the United States. They'll call it the liberal elite. And so these people that obviously see how profit incentives in the healthcare industry are harmful These people that can obviously see how a small group of companies have increasing market share and have effectively monopolized the market. These people who are angry about the fact that they only have one internet service provider in their neighborhood, they see that and they get angry. And their only explanation that is given to them by most people is this right-wing conspiracy theory, where if you're on the left in the United States, that is to say, within like the Democratic Party, you're for the most part expected to say that everything's working fine and believe in the institutions and decorum and all of those things. Whereas the right is actually willing to criticize the United States foreign policy and the United States in general. They're more likely to question the legitimacy of these institutions, except for the only solutions that the right wing provides are things that would actively make the problem worse and would escalate the United States into even more horrific levels of not only inequality, but also just extreme violence against marginalized people. But if you sit down with a lot of these right-wingers and you ask them about worker cooperatives, they'll say that they would love to work at a worker cooperative, or they would love to live in a housing cooperative. They might even say that, giant monopolies need to be broken up, or in some instances, even nationalized. But none of this really matters if they don't understand what socialism or communism is. None of this really matters as long as they're waging their anti-communist war and fighting against the woke mob. They will continue to support these policies that are incredibly detrimental, because the one thing that these people are sold, and this is really critical, is white privilege. They are told, especially white folks in the United States, that no matter how oppressed they are by capitalism, they will always have a leg up over marginalized people around them. And fearing losing that, these people grip onto their conspiracy theories and they grip onto the Republican Party, despite the obvious fact that the Republicans have done nothing to help them. So for those of you that still don't know what socialism is, I'll give you it in very, very brief terms. Under capitalism, you have the dictatorship of capital, which means no matter how democratic your system appears to be, it will always work to benefit the capitalists and suppress the interests of the working class. Under a socialist system, the state works completely the opposite way, where you have a dictatorship of the proletariat, where working class people are the ones that the government is serving, and the government is suppressing the interests of capitalists in order to suppress and prevent capitalist exploitation. That is socialism. And the end goal of socialism, what socialism strives towards, is communism, a moneyless, classless, stateless society built around the principle of from each according to their ability, to each according to their need. Nothing about that is scary, nothing about that is controversial. But when you bring it up, or you mention the word socialism or communism, people are bound to go on these weird anti-communist tirades that are for the most part based on complete nonsense, made-up propaganda.